Welcome to the 2017 Spring Test Admin Training. My name is Sarah Snuggs and I will be your trainer today. I want to thank you for joining us and taking some time to go through some information that we're going to be providing. As we're going through our training today, if you have any questions at any time, you can use the Q&A option. Go ahead and select that and it will open up a question box. You can type your question into the field and then select send, and one of our panelists will be responding to you as soon as possible. Our agenda for today, we're going to start with going through some of the test admin and due dates for Wisconsin. And then we'll be moving on to some enhancements for the ACT Aspire assessment this year. We'll start with the landing page, move on to some technology updates, go through some updates and reminders for the Spring 2017 assessment, and then we'll end with some portal updates. So let's get started with the review of your test admin and due dates. So this is the test delivery schedule for the Spring 2017 Summative Assessment, and this provides you some helpful dates to help you prepare for and deliver the ACT Aspire assessments. So we have some tasks that have already occurred. So March 14th through the 24th, this was when districts and schools were able to confirm or make any necessary updates to the 9th and 10th grade student data files in the portal. March 24th was also the deadline for a couple of different things. First of all, the deadline for all accommodations to be entered into the personal needs profiles in the portal for your paper-based testers. So if you had any students who had a paper-based testing accommodation, you should have had their accommodations entered into their profiles by March 24th. March 24th was also the deadline for entering your paper-based test orders. And by creating your test sessions and adding students into those sessions, that's how you were creating a test order and let us know how many students were going to be testing on paper, how many materials we needed to get to you, and to create the personalized pre-ID answer documents for them. Remember, only students requiring large print, Braille, or American Sign Language are eligible to test with the paper accommodation. March 30th is the deadline, so today, for technology coordinators to upgrade testing devices to the latest version of TestNav, which is TestNav 8.8. April 3rd, coming up next week, this will be the deadline for technology coordinators to complete the Proctor caching setup, and we'll be talking about Proctor caching a little bit more when we get to the technology updates. But just remember that Proctor caching setup, there are a couple of components. First of all, technology coordinators need to install the Proctor caching software on the Proctor caching computer or computers. And then there's also a Proctor caching setup that needs to occur in the portal so that the settings for that computer are entered in the portal and are available so that test sessions know which Proctor caching computer to connect to. April 14th will be the deadline for all accommodations to be entered into the personal needs profile for students in the portal for your online testing. And that's also the deadline for testing coordinators to set up the test sessions for your online testers as well. And then April 17th through the 21st, this is when test coordinators will receive paper shipments for those paper testers, for those students that were added into your sessions by the 24th. And then April 24th through May 26th will be the window for ACT Aspire testing. And then right after that, June 2nd, that will be the deadline for ACT Aspire to receive all paper answer documents. Late documents will not be scored, so you want to make sure that you get any of your paper shipments returned right at the end of your testing window so that they are received by that June 2nd deadline in order to get scored and reported. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the landing page, talk about some updates that have happened on the landing page. The ACT Aspire landing page, which is accessible at actaspire.pearson.com, has been updated. We have a new headlines banner that's on the home page. So throughout the assessment window, if there are important updates and reminders, we will be posting those here in these headlines. And whenever necessary, you'll see that this blue text lets you know that there is a link, and that's a link to helpful resources or documents to help you complete that task or understand the information that we are providing. That's right there up at the top, only on the home page. Also on the home page, we've added a link to the new Diagnostics Performance Level Descriptors, or PLDs. These PLDs were just introduced in the fall, so this information has been linked so that you can quickly find the Diagnostic Performance Level Descriptor information, and again, right there on the front of the home page. So next we're going to be talking about exemplars. So on the landing page, you'll see this tab for exemplar items. If you click on that, it will take you here to the exemplars. We do recommend that you start with this TestNav 8 tutorial. This is new. We added that in the fall. And the tutorial is designed to give a general overview of TestNav so that students and teachers understand how to use TestNav, which is the student testing platform. They can understand how to navigate, how to use the functionality that's embedded in the tool, so that they become familiar with using TestNav before they then move on to the exemplars, the subject exemplars. So the subject exemplars, they are a collection of grade-specific sample test items and tasks. So for each subject, you'll see the list of grades that are available. So for Wisconsin, you're going to use those last links, which is for the early high school, grades 9 and 10. The content is comprised of separate grade bands per subject, as you see, and it really is going to provide the students with the ability to test and use different item types and formats so that they're becoming familiar with the type of content that they're going to see when they take the Aspire assessments. We've also added the writing exemplars. These are new, so these have examples of writing at each score point. And you'll see that we have a test question booklet for each of these exemplars, and they provide an overview. They give you improvement idea statements, information about the depth of knowledge level for each item, and it does also provide you with an answer response key. So also on the landing page, there's a training and manuals tab. So this is where you'll be able to find the training management system, which is also called the TMS. The TMS is an online repository of self-paced training modules and demonstration videos. You can access it at any time whenever you want to go and maybe refresh or learn some new information about ACT Aspire. The training management system is there. It does require registration. It's going to ask for the first time you go there, it's going to ask for your email address and your first and last name. So it's a very basic registration. After that, whenever you come back, you'll enter your email address and it will take you right in, and you'll be able to keep track of trainings that you have completed, let you know, of course, which ones you haven't completed, so that you can kind of make sure that you're touching on all the different trainings that you're wanting to. There are trainings for the summative assessments as well as in the enhancement demo. The summative assessments, we have everything from getting started with getting logged into the portal all the way down to reporting and data usage after the assessment window closes, so that you understand how to access and interpret the reports that are available. The enhancement demo tab, every 6 weeks, the portal does have updates that are made. So the enhancement demo is there to provide a short video that covers each of those enhancements. And you'll see that there's also a link to the enhancement supplement document, and that provides the same information just in a written format. And don't forget to use your state-specific Avocet site. So off of the landing page, you'll find at the bottom on that training and manuals tab, there's Avocet links. And so you always want to make sure you're choosing the Wisconsin link. You should always see Wisconsin at the top of the page. And that's going to be your home for all of the ACT Aspire documents. We post manuals and resources there, and that's where you want to make sure you're going so that you're getting information specific for Wisconsin. And that's also the direct URL. You're always welcome to bookmark that so that you go directly there and don't have to go through the landing page. But again, the landing page will provide you that link on the Training and Manuals tab. Also on Avocet, we're going to be going through a lot of new and updated functionality, but there are always more changes that we may not have been able to cover today or that you're interested in learning. Or if, again, every 6 weeks we have those enhancements that are coming out. I showed you where you could access the demos on the TMS and the enhancement supplement, but we also cross-post those portal enhancement supplements to Avocet. So you'd go to the P for portal enhancements, and you'll be able to find each of those PDFs that you can download those and access those at any time. Another resource that's available is the Wisconsin ACT testing site, and that URL is www.act.org/state-and-district/Wisconsin. We are, like I said, recording today's webinar, and we're also going to be posting a PDF of the presentation. Those will be available on Avocet under T for training, and they'll also be here on the testing site under the training section. And then a last resource we're going to touch on is the Wisconsin DPI site. So the DPI State Assessments website is, of course, a great resource for you. You're going to find your assessment calendar, frequently asked questions, and a lot of other resources and information, and that's available at dpi.wi.gov/assessment/ACT. Now we're going to move on to some technology updates. So the landing page, again, it's your one-stop shop, so actaspire.pearson.com again. There is a technology setup tab on the landing page, and it's going to have all your technology resources. This includes AppCheck, PractorCache, and TestNav. This PractorCache, we have the installers for the PractorCache software. One thing to remember this year is that proctor caching is required. Previously, we said it was highly recommended. This year it is required for ACT Aspire because it does provide many benefits that will help you reduce the bandwidth requirements on your local internet service provider. So proctor caching is bringing down the test content before testing. You can pre-cache the content and have it there locally on an encrypted format. And that is what's going to provide the test content to students when they log into TestNav. And so that's preventing students from having to pull down, essentially redundant content, as many of those forms are going to be repeated. Those students will be getting the content locally at local area network speeds rather than going through your internet service provider, which can really, slow things down. So that is why we require proctor caching this year, is so that you're getting the best testing experience on your online. An AppCheck, this replaces SystemCheck. So we used to have a SystemCheck website. We're going to talk more about AppCheck here in a little bit, but just want to make you aware that that is what is replacing the old SystemCheck tool that was available and used to be in this location on the website. So right below those AppCheck, PractorCache, TestNav 8 resources, you'll see that there are the installable TestNav links. We do highly recommend using one of the TestNav apps rather than browser-based testing. No Java is required when you're using the apps, and for that reason alone, feedback is extremely positive for the apps. Obviously, you don't have to worry about the browser going through an update, so that's not going to change any of your setup during testing. Browsers are constantly making updates and you can't plan for it. Also, Java does a quarterly update, and it almost always falls during testing in April. So you want to make sure to use the apps so that you kind of have a stable environment and don't have to worry about those updates that may occur. So as you can see, all of the apps are accessible here. So desktop is for Windows, Mac, OS X, and Linux. desktops and laptops. The iPad app is for iPads, and then the Chromebook app is for Chromebooks. So based on the platform that you're going to be using, and you could use multiple. So you may have students testing on desktop, iPad, and Chromebook. You can do that. It's flexible. You can use any or all of these as needed. So just download the apps that apply to your setup, and then get them installed on your testing devices. And then remember that date for getting all your TestNav updated is, again, looking back again, your update date is March 30th. So technically today, you want to get those updated if you haven't already. And then if you do need to use a browser for a backup method, please remember that we are only supporting Firefox ESR 45, which is the 32-bit version. No other versions of browsers will be supported this year. So if you are going to be using browsers as a backup method, then Firefox ESR 45 32-bit is what you want to make sure is installed on your computers. Okay, so the TestNav 8 support site, this is also accessible from the landing page under that technology setup. So again, putting all your resources together on the landing page. This is where you're going to be able to go and find all of your information regarding the setup and support of both TestNav and ProctorCache. The site is updated regularly, and so it's only going to contain the most current support information. You'll see that there is a recently updated section so that you can go and review any updates that have been made. There is no login required to access the support site, and it's mobile ready. I'm going to go ahead and just pull that up and show it to you here briefly. Okay, so here's the support site. So you'll be able to see, again, has all the information for both TestNav and ProctorCache, starting with system requirements for TestNav. I want to call out as you go onto the support site, you'll want to disregard any information regarding Android, as ACT Aspire does not currently support the Android device. But Windows, OS X, Linux, iOS, and Chrome OS are available for you so that you can get that information, again, starting with the system requirements, how to set up and use TestNav. We've got our desktop apps. We've got the Chrome OS and the iOS, so your iPads. And then again, if you're doing browser-based testing, it's going to be that Firefox ESR, but that should be a backup method for you. Whenever you see that arrow, that it does mean it's expandable and you can see more information. We've got information about getting your ProctorCache set up, system requirements for your computers, as well as how to set up and use it. The error codes are available here. So error codes, as students are testing with TestNav, it's possible they may see an error code, so they are broken out by their number. So you can quickly come on here, find that error number, see what the error message is that the student was seeing, and then we try to provide you additional information and instruction so that you can quickly resolve it and get the students back to testing as soon as possible. So very helpful support site. And then, like I said, that recently updated, like I said, we're making updates regularly. You can always come here and see what those updates were and understand what has changed on the site since last you were here. So now we're going to talk some about the TestNav 8 setup. So remember, of course, like we said, the installable TestNav app is what we recommend. So it's not updated by any browser updates or changes and does not require Java to secure the testing. As we talked about, it's available for desktop, iPad, and Chromebook. And those install links on the landing page, if you want to bookmark, it takes you directly to download.testnav.com. That's the direct URL, but again, you can always get there from the landing page. I want to just remind you again, ACT Aspire does not support Android devices at this time, so you should only stick with the desktop, iPad, and Chromebook information. And then no matter what method of testing you're using, whether you're using one or multiple of the apps, or even if you're using a browser-based option as a backup, no matter what, your technology coordinators need to make sure that your network is configured. So firewalls, content filters, spam filters, basically anything that could route or block the systems from accessing TestNav, or from TestNav from sending information back to our servers for scoring. You need to make sure that the configuration is set to allow access to get through your network. So this asterisk is actually a wildcard, but it's also helpful in that these are all required for you to set up. So tn.actaspire.org, port 80, and tn.actaspire.org, port 443. Those are the actual TestNav platform. So those, of course, need to make sure you have access to get through. Body.com, PearsonTestContent.com, UserTrust.com, and Commodica.com. So again, that asterisk is a wildcard, but also reminds you that those are required. And then optionally, you can also set up Google-Analytics.com. So no matter what, you may need to make sure that those URLs and ports are set up on your network. Okay, so Chromebook setup. We haven't had any changes to the setup methods for Chromebooks, but I just wanted to briefly touch on them. Chromebooks can either be what's called managed or unmanaged. So we have two different setup methods. Most of you are going to have managed Chromebooks if you're using them. Managed devices, all of the setup steps are going to be performed through your central administration so that all Chromebooks in the domain are configured at once. So most of you, your IT is going to have a way to, update all of your Chromebooks at once. When using managed devices, there are essentially two main setup steps that are going to occur. You need to install or update your TestNav 8 app and set it to run as a kiosk app, and then preserve the local data on the Chromebook to retain the saved response file, or SRS. So as students are taking their test, there's what's called a saved response file that's recording their answers. That saved response file and log file will be on the device. And again, most of you will be using a managed device setup. And the exact details can be found on that TestNav 8 support site under the Setup TestNav section. In some rare instances, though, you may have an unmanaged device, and the setup steps for these need to be performed on each device individually. So this requires access to the administrator account for the device. If you don't have access to that administrator account, then the Chromebook would need to be backed up to cloud storage and wiped clean before you continue. And then after testing is complete, you would then restore any information you backed up back from the cloud onto the device. So again, most of you will be using a managed Chromebook, and setup steps for both of these, again, are on that TestNav 8 support site we saw earlier. iPads do have some changes since last spring, so I do want to talk about these. iPads only have one setup method now. We used to have 4. So the single setup is now called the Automatic Assessment Configuration, or AAC. So Apple designed and implemented this, this setup method. So AAC ensures that the student cannot access other apps, pages, or features after the single app mode starts. So once the student logs into TestNav and it goes into that full screen mode, that's that single app mode. And single app mode is what stops and releases the device as the student logs in and out of the test. To install TestNav, if you still have any of the previously established TestNav restrictions and setup information from last year, just go ahead and remove those restrictions from the iPads. And if you have any questions about the new AAC option, you can always go on to the Apple Education website. The URL is www.apple.com/education/IT, and then search for Assessments Overview. You can then need to download and install the latest version of TestNav for iPads. And the first time it's launched, so when you install that new version, it's going to have a prompt that comes up. It's called the Enable Microphone Permission prompt. You're going to need to click or tap OK to grant permission. If you accidentally click not okay, and it's not allowed, you can go to the settings on the iPad and update that to allow permission. It does need to say okay. And essentially, it's just a general TestNav prompt that says that there's a voice recorder, audio recorder option in the test that the microphone can be accessed. While it may not and does not at this time apply to ACT Aspire, it's a general TestNav setting, so you need to make sure you tap OK to grant that permission. And then when students log into TestNav, every time they log into TestNav, so that enable microphone permission prompt, remember that was just once, but every time a student logs into TestNav, they are going to see a confirm app self-lock prompt. And another very simple, click or tap yes, and they'll be able to log in and finish getting into TestNav. It's going to display again every time, so every subject a student's taking, when they log in, it's going to show that prompt. Again, very simple. If they accidentally click no, it's just going to take them back to the sign-in screen. They're going to put in their username and password from their authorization ticket, and they can click OK, yes, that second time. Okay, so another thing to consider if you are using iPads is that Apple only allows an app to run in that single app kiosk mode where it's taking over the full screen, which is what TestNav uses. It only allows that single app mode to run for a specific amount of time before it's going to take the device out of kiosk mode. So this can affect the length of time that TestNav is able to run once the student signs in to an individual subject test. So for iOS 9.3.x, which is 9.3.2 and not through 9.3.5, that time limit is 3 hours. For iOS 10.2 and 10.2.1, it allows up to 8 hours. So really, if you are still using a 9.3.2 through 9.3.5 version of an iOS, you just really want to make sure that you're considering any students who may be impacted and have an extended time of testing that would exceed 3 hours. So it's going to be probably a small number of students, but if students would exceed that 3 hours of testing, you just want to plan for that. So if any students are going to exceed, plan a break for them so they can sign out of TestNav before time expires. Take a break an hour and a half in, or whatever the case might be, and then they can come back. The room supervisor will need to resume the student's test in the portal, and then the student will log back into the test with their information from their authorization ticket. If the time expires, though, and the student gets kicked out, the student's exited from the test, and the room supervisor will still need to resume the student in the portal, but you'll also need to restart the iPad and relaunch the TestNav app and then have the student log in again. So it's a little bit more disruptive. Obviously, the student unexpectedly gets kicked out, and there's some more steps to get them started up again. So again, if you're using 9.3.2 through 9.3.5 on your iPads at this point, then just plan a break. Have students log out so that they're not being disrupted. It's a naturally planned break for them. Now let's talk about AppCheck and the configuration identifier. So like we talked about, AppCheck is going to replace the SystemCheck website going forward. So that old SystemCheck website is no longer available. AppCheck was already available in our apps and was previously used just to confirm that the app could go into that full kiosk mode, where the full screen mode, and make sure that the connection to TestNav was successful. So AppCheck will now also perform the Proctor Cache check that SystemCheck used to do. And to run this check, you're going to need a new configuration identifier. We're going to talk about that. It's obtained in the portal. This is where you're going to get this identifier information. So this is the organization's Proctor Cache settings. This is where technology coordinators go to enter the Proctor Cache settings for your organization. You can create Proctor Cache settings at the school level or the district level. So you could have a proctor caching computer at the district level that's going to support all schools in your district. You can also set up a proctor caching computer at each individual school if desired. So wherever you're setting up your settings, this is where the configuration identifier will be available for each proctor caching computer you set up. So each is going to have their own unique identifier. So from, again, you're going to Organizations, Proctor Cache Settings. You'll see right here under the primary host IP address, this is the IP address of that proctor caching computer. The identifier is available there. So when you enter your IP address and hit save, this identifier will become active. If you previously have already been using proctor caching, so you already have a setting in the portal, you will need to come in and just, do an update. You can delete out, in this example, that 7, re-enter it, and then click save again, and that will activate your configuration identifier. So it does need to be saved in order to be active. So as you're entering new ones, it'll save and be activated. If you have previously existing, come in, do a quick edit, save it again, and it will activate your configuration identifier for that IP address. So now let's talk about AppCheck. So again, this is in your TestNav apps. So Chromebook, iOS, or desktop, any of those apps have this AppCheck option. Once you're in the app, you'll go to the user menu, and you'll see that there is an AppCheck option. So go ahead and select that from that user drop-down menu. This will take you to the AppCheck screen. So you can see that the configuration identifier is optional. You do not have to enter that unless you are wanting to run a check on your proctor cache machine. So if you just want to run that basic TestNav setup check that we had available before in AppCheck, you can leave that configuration identifier blank, and then you're going to select Run AppCheck. And so we'll look at that first one. So we left this blank. So this is the first example. We left the identifier blank, and we clicked Run AppCheck, and it's going to check that kiosk mode passed. Again, that's that full screen mode, making sure that the app was able to go into that full screen mode, and that connectivity to TestNav passed as well. In this second example, you'll see I did enter that configuration identifier from the portal, and I ran AppCheck. And so now at this point, it's still checking the kiosk mode. It's still checking the connection to TestNav. But I now also see that it's checking proctor cache. So making sure that the app is able to connect to that proctor caching machine. Because once you enter those settings, you want the TestNav to be able to connect to the proctor cache machine, so that again, that's where the students are going to get their testing content, is from that proctor caching machine locally. And in this last example, this one has, again, the configuration identifier entered, but in this case, we can see that proctor cache failed. So whenever it's successful, you're gonna have that green check mark and the green background. If there's ever an issue, you're gonna have that red background with a red alert, little exclamation point. And when this happens, we're gonna try to help you. So we're gonna tell you why it failed. You need to check your proctor cache settings and network. In this case, we also include a direct link to the setup and use proctor cache section of the TestNav 8 online support site. So if there's ever a failure, we're going to try to give you information so that you can troubleshoot and try to resolve the issue again as quickly as possible. Now let's go through a few other additional technology reminders and updates. So first of all, make sure your technology coordinators are identifying which proctor cache machine or machines they are going to be using, and that the proctor cache software is installed and or updated, and that those settings, like we just were looking at on the Organizations tab in the portal, that those settings are entered into the portal. Those two steps do need to be completed so that TestNav can access the proctor caching machine. If you have used Proctor caching in any of your previous administrations, technology coordinators should purge any existing content from their Proctor caching machines before they start to download the new content for the spring assessments. And information about purging content can be found on that TestNav 8 support site we saw earlier. Next, make sure that the student workstations and devices have their apps installed and are fully updated. And then again, if you're planning to have browsers available as a backup method, make sure that the browsers are configured and that they are the Firefox ESR 45 32-bit version, so that they're properly configured and that TestNav can launch. And then on the day of testing, you always want to make sure that all other applications on the device or the computer have been closed and only TestNav is running, and that TestNav login screen is up so that students can quickly enter their username and password and begin testing. So now let's go through a few spring 2017 general updates and reminders. This is a table of the test time by grade and subject, and you can find this table in the Test Coordinator Manual, which is available both on the landing page and on your Wisconsin Avocet site. When reviewing the table, if you have any paper testers, just remember this English text audio does apply to paper-based testing, so students who are receiving that accommodation, these times do need to be tracked locally. So test administrators in a paper-based administration do need to have a timing device of some sort, stopwatch, whatever the case might be, so that they can make sure that students are getting the proper time for their grade, subject, and any accommodations they're receiving. These administration times only begin once room supervisors have given the verbal instructions and then students have logged into TestNav. So once students log into TestNav, TestNav has a timer and is going to be timing the students, making sure they receive the appropriate test time. Again, for any allowed paper-based administrations, the test administrator is going to be doing that timing. They should only start the stopwatch after students have completed any pre-test answer document graded, and again, after they've received verbal instructions. So once they get to that question 1, that's when time should start. If you plan to administer 2 or more subject tests in a single sitting, then just remember to, take into account administrative time. So you need to plan some extra time between each test, 5–10 minutes at least, to make sure that you're collecting the previously used authorization tickets and any other materials the students may have had, scratch paper, whatever the case might be. Make sure that you're distributing the new authorization tickets and materials they may need, as well as, of course, going through those verbal instructions for the next test. So, make sure you're taking into account that administrative time that you're going to need between each test if you're going to do multiple. So add these together plus a little additional time. We also want districts and schools to make sure to go through the users within your district and clean them up. Remember that the portal has secure student information in there, so you only want the right people having access, and you want them to have the right level or user role so that they're only accessing the functionality and information that they are authorized for. So in the portal, on the organizations drop-down menu, you can select organization members. You want to make sure that all of your district and school contacts are still correct, and that, again, the users have the correct portal user roles. I do want to call out that there are a couple of new portal user roles that have just been added. These include report permissions and student admin. So report permissions, if you give someone that user role, they will be able to view posted reports and access dynamic reports. So essentially just those reports either posted or that they can create dynamically, and they won't have access to any of the other functionality within the portal. So if you have someone who just assists you with reporting, the report permissions role might be appropriate for them. Student admin has access to all the functionality on the Students tab in the portal. So this is making sure that the student data information is correct, updating your personal needs profiles on the students, helping with transfers, so anything that's there on that Students tab in the portal. And then again, they would not have access to other functionality in the portal. If you have any questions about all these different user roles, again, on your Avocet site, if you go to P for portal user roles, there is a matrix that goes through each of the different roles and the functionality that they have available. And then as you're going through your users, like we said, make sure you remove any users who are no longer with your district and or are just no longer involved with the assessment. Again, you want to make sure that all of your student information is remaining secure. And then once you go through everyone, you've cleaned them up, you're inevitably going to realize that you have some new staff members that need to be invited into the portal. This is also on the organization members option in the portal. There's an invite new members button that you can select. Make sure that you're considering the organization the user should be invited to. So if they're a school level user, in the portal in that top right hand corner, you're going to want to have the correct school selected and then invite them from there. If they're a district level user, then you can have the district selected and invite them from the district level organization. You should use their professional email address and then again choose the correct role to apply. And you can always give them a heads up that the email will be coming from admin@actaspire.org. If they cannot locate their email, you might want to have them check their spam filter, spam folders, and that email usually goes out within, at most 15 minutes. So it's very quick. That invite goes out after you submit it. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some other portal updates. So I'm going to start with test sessions. The new test detail screen, when you go to create test sessions, you still have the option to create test sessions individually or multiple sessions at once. There are a few changes, so let's go through this. Create single is best when you want to select individual students. So for example, those few paper testers, you just have a few of them that you needed to get into a paper test session. Remember, those were due by March 24th. That's really the best scenario, the best use is just, again, individual students you want to select manually. Create multiple, though, is really good for creating sessions by grade as well as new this year group or teacher. In this case, students are going to be added automatically to the sessions depending on the criteria you select, but you can always go back and add or remove students manually if you need to. So let's go through that new multiple test, create multiple test details screen. So we have the create multiple button selected. In step one, you're going to choose the test administration to administer. So for example, Spring Summative 2017. You're going to choose the online mode of testing to apply to your sessions. You're going to be able to determine your testing window. So this testing window affects when computer-based testing, when students can log in and out of TestNav. So the start and end dates are going to control that window that the test session will be available for students to log in and out of the test. You can refine the test window by selecting specific start and end time. So it's going to default to 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can always change those, or you can choose 24-hour testing. Choosing that means any time of the day within that window, TestNav is available. The default time zone and daylight savings selections for your tenant will be displayed, but you can modify those if needed. And you can also choose the days of the week that you want to test. So maybe you're only going to plan to do testing on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You can choose just those 4 days of the week, and TestNav would only be available for students to log in on those 4 days between the times that you have selected. So if you left it as 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. is when students would be able to log in and out of TestNav. So really giving you flexibility so that students are not logging in outside of the windows that you want them to. Always keep your authorization ticket secure as well. So then step 4, this is where you'll see all of the grades with students that are eligible for the selected test administration within the school, as well as the different subjects. So you can select the subjects that the students will be taking, and the students will be added. So in this case, grade 9, 522 students, all 522 students would be added into test sessions. And this would be up to 200 tests for online testing. So, up to 200 students for online testing can be added into a test session. So I would break that out into 3 different test sessions for the students. New this year, we also have group. So this second group tab is new. So groups are an optional step you can take. You can create groups in the portal and add students to them. So could be, at the grade level, could be that you're doing it by homeroom or teacher, by subject, whatever the case might be. Again, totally flexible, up to you how you want to use groups and create them, or if you want to use them. But if you've created groups, then you can use that. You'll be able to choose the group from the drop-down menu, be able to select the subjects that group should be taking. And in this case, you can also select the max number of students in a test session up to that 200 per online test. So, we got some feedback that some districts wanted to only put 50 students in a test session. This group option would allow you to do that. The teacher tab, again, an option that you can use in the portal. You can create your teachers in the portal and then assign students to those teachers. So if you've assigned students to the teachers, you can use this teacher filter in order to choose a teacher. Again, choose the subjects that the students for that teacher should be taking. You can select to have the teacher just immediately added as a room supervisor to the test session rather than having to go manually add them separately. So they'll get added. And again, you can choose the max number of students per test session in this case. And then step 5 is your PractiCash details. So hopefully your technology coordinators have entered your settings. They will then default into this field. If no settings have been entered, though, you can always manually enter them into the IP address and primary host port field. And then you'll click Create Test Sessions, and it's going to create all your test sessions based on the criteria you used. It'll take you to the test session job status page. It's going to be that create multiple here in the middle is where you want to be. And depending on the number of sessions you're creating, it can take up to a couple of hours for those to finish. But as they're here on the screen, you'll see that you have this refresh icon. So you can choose that refresh icon in the status column to refresh the screen, see when they've been completed. Or you can always leave and come back by going to summative tests on the navigation bar and selecting test session job status from the drop-down menu. So completed success means all the students in all grades and subjects requested have been added to test sessions. And remember, that's going to be up to 200 students per computer-based test session. If you see the status of completed warning, then that means at least one or more students had a warning and were not able to be added to the test session for the selected grade and subjects. Any student that doesn't have a warning will be added, though. So you can click on this link. This is a blue link icon, so you'll be able to click on that, see a list of the students that had warnings, so you can work on just those students, resolve whatever the issue might be, and get them added into test sessions accordingly. So all the students that didn't have warnings will be added. You're going to click on that link, see your list, and just take care of those students as needed. Okay, so now we're going to move on to additional orders. This is new functionality this year. Before we review this process, though, just some things you need to keep in mind. So first of all, your initial shipments will include a small overage of test materials. So you don't need to submit an additional order if the overage is going to cover any additional students that have come in. And you don't need to submit an additional order for students that were in their test sessions by that March 24th deadline. Additional orders are intended only for, again, students who were not in sessions by the deadline and are not covered by your overage. So in this case, you still need to get students into test sessions. You can create new ones or add them to existing test sessions. and then you'll be able to submit an order through the portal. So you no longer have to contact ACT Aspire customer service. Orders will not be processed, though, unless the ordered number of students are in the appropriate subject test session or sessions. So you need to get them into the test sessions before you submit an order for them. This functionality is on the Organizations tab in the portal, and then there is a Manage Orders option. I'll take you here to this order screen, and you can select the Create New Order button here. It's going to take you to the Materials Order Add Item screen. You'll be able to choose an item from the list. So it could be answer documents, large print, or Braille kits. You're going to choose the item, and then you're going to choose your grade, which will be early high school, and the subject for that item, determine the quantity you need, and then select that Add to Cart button. From your cart, you can review your order. You can adjust the quantities here as needed. You could remove an item from the order. You could realize you still need to go back and add more items. You can go back and add those, or you can choose the Continue to Checkout. On this checkout screen, you're going to need to provide a contact number. So it's going to default have your name and email address, but you also need to provide a contact number should we need to reach you if there's any questions. The date the materials are needed by. Optionally, you can provide a comment, and optionally, you can also select a specific school ID. So phone and date needed by are required. Optionally are comments and that student ID. And then you'll select Save and Submit Order. The order will then be reviewed by ACT Aspire and DPI for approval. Again, make sure you've gotten those students added into test sessions and that that quantity matches. Okay, so also new this year, we have what's called the Will Not Test flag. And the Will Not Test flag is available to help you track students who will not be taking the summative assessment tests for one of the following reasons: parent opt-out, significant medical emergency, recent trauma, student absent for the entire window, no longer enrolled in school or tested grade, recently arrived ELL, student participated in DLM, or other. So you'll be able to choose a flag for each subject that this applies to. It's set at the student level by subject. It's available on the student profile page. It is not related to a test session. It's not a comment or an irregularity. Students should not be added to a test session if they are going to have a Will Not Test flag. So to assign the Will Not Test flag, if it applies, again, don't assign the student to a test session. Instead, you're going to come to the student profile. If you had already added the student to a session before it's been started, you are able to remove the student first and then assign the reason. In a moment, we'll talk about if you're no longer able to remove the student. We'll go through that as well. So you cannot assign a Will Not Test reason flag if the student is in a test session. So from the student profile, you'll see there's a new Testing Accountability tab. And you'll see that each subject is available, and you can assign a Will Not Test reason to any or all subjects. So it's possible you might have a Will Not Test reason flag for different reasons for different subjects. So it is at the student and subject level. You can also remove a reason. So if you were expecting that a student wasn't going to test and then that changes, maybe significant medical emergency, they were supposed to be out and they came back early enough to test, you can just come into the profile, remove the reason, and then assign the student to the test session as needed. If the student transfers within the Wisconsin tenant, then this Will Not Test reason flag will transfer with the student once that transfer request is approved. I do want to note it does not apply to tenant-to-tenant transfers. So the choice school tenant is a separate tenant from Wisconsin. So if you have students who are transferring in from that choice school tenant, the will not test reason flag will not transfer them. It's only transfers within the same tenant. So if you have a student who cannot be removed from a test session, you added them, the student got started, or if it was paper-based, we already printed their pre-IDs. At that point, if they're no longer able to be removed from a test session, then you will need to make sure that you have force closed the student's test. So in the test session, you're going to go in and choose the force close option and then request a reinstatement. If and when that reinstatement request is approved, then you'll be able to go to the student profile and the will not test reason can be assigned at that point. And there will be some more information about, situations where you may need to do this. DPI will be providing that information before the testing window occurs. The last thing we're going to talk about is the registered return status report. This was available last year, but we've made some updates. I just want to go through those quickly. The registered return status report is there to help districts and schools quickly see how many students have been registered for a test. When we say registered, that means they have been assigned to the test session, have had a test processed for scoring, or are still unregistered and need to be assigned to a test session. You can view this report at either your district or school level organization. However, whichever organization is selected over there in your top right-hand corner is going to impact the data available. We're going to go through that, but essentially your district organization has very high-level details. The school-level organization, if you have that selected, you will be able to drill all the way down to the student level, which is obviously going to be very helpful in helping you especially determine those students who are unregistered and need to be assigned to a test session. So to access the report, it's here on this summative test option on the navigation bar, and then down at the bottom is the registered return status. So this first example, we're looking at the district level. I have a district level organization selected. I have my two tabs. I can look at the district level information. I can look at school level information. We're going to start with the district tab in this case. It's blue. That lets me know it's selected. Here on the screen, I can see a summary of my school district. I can choose this little plus icon and it'll expand the screen and show me each grade level detail. So I can see my 9th and 10th graders, each at separate level, 9th versus 10th. You can see each subject's percentage of students that have been registered, are not registered, or have been returned for scoring. And so last year, returned was 1 bucket. I want to call out that returned is now 2. So we have scoring in progress and scoring complete. So that you get a little bit more granular detail and know how far students are in the scoring process. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that for paper-based testing, even though you may have shipped back materials until processing is underway, they're still going to fall into this registered bucket. For computer-based testing, keep in mind that this data is rolled up every night. So students who have just completed testing today, they're going to show in that registered bucket until they move, usually overnight, and start to go into that scoring in progress. We've also added this last updated so that you keep that in mind, that this information is as of whichever date you see up there in the corner. And you can always hover over a subject to get more information about the total number of students. So high level, you can see the percentages, and then you can see what that percentage actually breaks down to as far as your total student count. Now we're going to look at the district level. So I still have my 2 tabs, but this time I've moved to my school tabs. I'm a district level user. My organization is a district, but I'm going to look at the school tab. I again will see each of the schools. I can use the plus icon to expand that school and see the grade level detail. You can still hover over the percentage and see the specific student numbers for that percentage. And now we're going to look at this information, but from a school organization. at the school tab. So when you're at a school organization, that's the only tab you're going to have available is the school tab. I can view the school as a whole. I can, again, choose my plus icon to see the individual grade level details. I can still hover over a percentage to get student numbers, but I can also now actually click on this bar, and it's going to allow me to drill all the way down to the student level. I can see the actual student details. So up at the top, you'll see that you have some filter criteria that you can use. You can choose one or multiple tested grades. You can choose one subject. You can only choose one subject, so multiple grades, but only one subject. I can choose to look at a different bucket of the students. I can see all students, not registered, registered, scoring in progress, and scoring complete. If you make any changes to your criteria, then just click the Find Students button so that the list of students refreshes. So in this case, I'm looking at my not registered. We can see that because it's got this blue background around it. That lets me know that I'm looking at the students that are not registered, and I can see a list of the students. So again, very helpful for making sure you get all your students added into test sessions. You'll see that there's a register link. So from using this register link, you can add the student to any of your existing test sessions. If you have not created a session yet for the subject and grade combination, you will still need to create those sessions using the create instructions that we provided earlier. But if they have already been set up, you created test sessions and you need to add them, then you can use this register link to add them to an existing test session. There's also an extract button. So whatever list of students you have available, when you extract it, it will be extracted into Excel, and that lets you review the information outside of the portal. Maybe you want to distribute it, get it to school coordinators, have them review it and take action accordingly. That extract is there so that you can use this information again outside of the portal and then come back into the portal when you're ready. Okay, so I've seen a lot of questions coming in. Definitely, if you have any other questions, make sure you get those in because we have reached the end of our training for today. If you have any questions, though, after our training, I do want to call out that there is a new chat feature available in the portal. So up here in the top right, there's this chat icon. If you click on it, it is going to open up a chat screen. You're going to put in your name. That is required. All the other fields are optional, but we do request, try to give as much information as you can. Email address, phone number, what state you're calling about. Let us know that you're calling from Wisconsin or contacting us from Wisconsin. Your district and or school name, and the testing program that it's the summative assessment. And then click submit, and it will send the request to our customer service, and they will get back to you promptly through the chat feature right there in the portal. We do also, of course, still have phone and email, so you can always contact ACT Aspire customer service at 888-802-7502, option 7 on the phone tree. They are available 6 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday, or by email at actaspire_implementation@actaspire.org. Okay. At this point, that is the end of our training. Again, thank you for taking some time to attend. Remember, we are recording today's session, so it will be posted again to Avocet under T for training. We're going to have a copy of the PDF of this PowerPoint as well as a recording of the session. That will also be on the Wisconsin ACT testing site as well. So thanks you again, and I appreciate your attendance. Have a wonderful day.